Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, bud. You too. There we are. And we are live.
Yay.
So let's try this again.
This is the Coin Show Podcast. The show about coins and coin collecting. And not just any show. This is the #1 coin collecting podcast. Going 10 years strong. Here's Matt Dinger and Mike Nodelman on the Coin Show Podcast.
Or something like that. This is not the Coin Show Podcast, but we decided since Matt is out for a little bit that we were going to take over. We were going to have a little fun. And welcome to our little bit. My co-host today, our very special guest, Aaron Burke. Thank you for joining us, Aaron. And we are going to do an Ask Us Anything in the style of the typical Reddit, AMA. We are going to do an Ask Us Anything about coins. And so we're welcoming your input. So let's see. Do I have a chat? I don't know if I have a chat or not. We'll have to just go to the stream and look for it. So
there's a chat.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get settled. There we are. All right. Man, we got quite a little turnout here too. So Mark Medlin coming in. Sean Davis. Aloha. Happy Manatee.
Josh, Evan's there.
Evan is here. Evan, absolutely stellar human being, sends us free wine. We love that, man. Let's see. Yeah, Mark Medlin, all that. They see us. We are here. We are there. So the main point of this today was to ask us anything. I wish I had a little bit of reverb. That would have been really cool. And echo, ask us any. So if you have a question about coins, be they ancient coins, be they modern coins, the U.S. minting processes, you name it, we handle it. This is where HJB kind of takes over the Coin Show Podcast. So thanks, Matt. Matt poking his head into the chat.
Yeah, we wanted Russ here too, but he decided to go have fun somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah, well, every once in a while people need a little time off. So we have our first question. T asks, is there any special photography techniques or any type of scientific imaging system like electron microscopy? Sure, that's a big word. That would make it much easier to see the original coin in an overstrike. And here's what I will tell you as far as images go. It's been my experience that at a certain magnification, things start to lose their perspective. And so you really kind of start to lose them. So there are certain things, particularly like understrike coins, that I think are better seen with the naked eye because your eye will kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. Whereas when you start getting too close to the coin, you really lose the perspective of what you're looking at. And I think it just becomes too hard to see.
I mean, it depends on the resolution of the image that you're looking at as well. And obviously,
and how prominent the understrike would be too.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because if it's really faint, there's just only good you can see it.
I mean, in talking about photography, one thing that we noticed when we went to digital, so when digital cameras first came out, the resolution wasn't all that great, and they were actually perfect for shooting coins because it didn't pick up as much as what's there. And now the biggest problem we have is that the cameras pick up too much, and so it's really a tough balancing act. And in fact, we used to use a Nikon, it was a Nikon 990. It was one of the earlier.
What was it, like 5 megapixels?
Maybe 10,
okay.
20. It was pretty high. Actually.
Well, I mean, for the time, that was,
Right. But what was really cool is it actually had a swivel on it. And
Okay.
so you could actually get the viewer like this. And so you could actually have it on a tripod and still be able to see it without having to be over the top of it like you would on a regular digital camera. And so, I mean, now you can hook up the cameras to, other screens and things like that to be able to see it. But in any case, the 990, they stopped producing them, and we were literally buying them off of eBay and refurbishing them, and we had like 4 or 5 backups because the camera was like 9 years old and they'd stopped making it, and they weren't the only thing you do is replace it. And so eventually we had to go to our current system, and we got a really nice $5,000 camera for that, and then the battle began.
Well, then you have to find talented people to use said $5,000 camera. That's, the other thing is the technology for this exists, but you had an idiot like me running it today. So, that's why we had such a problem. Just saying.
Right. But that's why I started going to videos on every single one of our lots in our sale, because I got so sick of battling, not being able to get the luster right, not being able to pick up scratches, and other defects in the coin, because that's the other thing too, is like you want to pick up the defects, but you don't want them to overpower what you're looking at either. Right. Because again, the naked eye doesn't necessarily pick those things up. And so with the video, it really does capture everything that you're looking for when it comes to that stuff. And I don't think I've ever very difficult to actually pick up anybody's catalog in the industry and have the color match what the coin looks like.
Yes.
Almost impossible.
Well,
and so video really does capture a lot of that.
Yeah. And one of the things that T had said, it was T's question, that he had said is the best luck he's had so far is using a moving light, kind of like Stack Spowers coins in motion. And it's true, because you're going to get several different reflections of the luster, which is what I think is the only really accurate way to present the luster of a coin, because it really does change in the light.
I mean, you could probably go to, once you shoot it with a decent photograph, you could probably change the layers and be able to change the different frequency in the image in Photoshop to be able to get, some of the details of the understrike that you're looking for. So there are things you can do with it when breaking down a digital image.
Yeah. And that was T the Silver Stacker, who coincidentally,
yeah,
I'm wearing a T the Silver Stacker t-shirt. That was completely by accident. Not completely by accident, was our correcting of your audio. And I told you that people would be tolerant somewhat. Taco John comments, "You got your mic fixed, Aaron?" Well, no, it's more like Mike got Aaron's mic fixed, and it was on Mike's end. So I'll take the heat for that one. Producing these podcasts is a lot of technical stuff.
I mean, so basically what had happened is Mike got an update and it reset some things, and my sound was looping.
It was looping back into my board. And we're looking on Aaron's end for the fix, and it's not on Aaron's end.
And I went through I changed all my audio stuff. I got new headphones. I got a new camera.
Which is great.
Right. And then my son was helping because he's studying sound engineering. And then he heard the tape after we did the last one. And he's like, "That's on Mike's end."
I didn't know Ian was studying sound engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's even better. We have an actual sound engineer that's helped us with this then. That's great.
Yeah.
So, so I'm wearing a T the Silver Stacker shirt today. Somebody else, Taco, thanks for your comment. We appreciate it. And it was something that we were going to get fixed. We were going to get it fixed fast. However, what today also shows us is that we can now do the Ancient Coin podcast as a live stream.
Yes, we can.
So we have that. True. We have that for the future. We'll figure that out as we want to do it.
Well, let's do a nice clean episode.
Oh, come on. You're asking for a lot. Personally, I think people like the blemishes. Evan Bellinger, what is the impact? And he's asking a lot of questions. How has social media, the internet, changed the coin business?
Well, I can tell you from my perspective that social media especially has helped me get out of the shadow of my father. My father's obviously a huge name in the industry. And for the first 20 years of my career, I was okay being in the background, so making sure the catalogs got done, the website stuff. I was always there to like direct things behind the scenes, and I was cool with that. And then I realized, like, when social media started really taking off with video, that and I was a nervous guy too. I mean, doesn't seem that way now, but right. But I started to I started a Facebook page. And another thing too, guys, if you want to game Facebook for business, what you do is you create an second individual page for yourself. So a personal page, not a business page, because the business pages, no matter how many followers you have, it does not, the algorithms don't work in your favor.
Yeah,
The
they
only way
choke
it
it
works
off.
is if they make you pay for it. So with a personal page, every person that follows me gets all of my posts. And also when I go live, it goes live to every one of my followers as well.
Yes.
And so that's how you game them. Now, the only thing is you can't have over 5,000 followers, or no, you can't have over 5,000 friends. That's one thing, which is fine, but you can have unlimited followers, which is fine. And so I started putting myself out and just going live on Facebook all the time. And I'd have 300 people live watching, and I would just go with it. And so slowly I just started to put myself out there and more and more and more. And so then it got to a point where I became more recognizable, or as recognizable as my father. And so that was huge for me to be able to get myself out there, as well as get myself out of my shell, and also keep Harlan Burke relative, which is really super important. We all know these days, going online there, I mean, you can go into Bidder or Numis Bids or any of these places, and there's a gazillion auctions every day. And so really, what is going to separate you or your company from the rest of the industry? And that is really the content that you put out there. Anybody can put out a catalog or an auction, but it's a different thing when you actually get in front of a camera, or you educate people and you give back. And by giving back, you're going to obviously be getting as well, because you're doing all those things, making yourself relative, making your company relative, and also making the coin industry in itself relative. So especially in ancient coins, coins are really made perfectly for the internet. They're small, they have a story, and they're easy to ship. And so they really are the perfect item for the internet. And so, and coming from an ancient coin background and coin background in general, most of us in the industry always had to have a mail order type of business, because you're not going to support yourself generally, especially in ancient coins, just from your local town. It's just not going to happen. So you have to have a full reach. And so mail order was really important. My dad's been doing mail order since the 60s. And so for us, it originally, with the internet, and maybe I'm getting off base with the question a little bit, but the internet was built perfectly for the coin industry, and we just took what we were doing already with our catalogs and put it online. And then it's just been developed ever since then. And then social media is just a way of getting our personalities out there, and our content out there. So I think it's been huge. I think it'll continue to be huge, and I think that it'll continue to develop over time.
The internet has become so much a part of our cultural zeitgeist that it is like a direct link to it. So when people have become famous just for being famous on the internet, it's one of those things where it plugs into people in this world now in a way that they haven't in a long time. So I think that was the biggest impact, is people figured, okay, there is this platform and it works a million different ways, and people are fickle, and they'll kind of go and do this for a while and then they get tired of it and they do that for a while. But the consistent thing is the connection, and the people out there just kind of looking for connection. And so you create these communities through social media, like Facebook, like YouTube, like Twitch, and even to to some extent. Twitter had some of that. Reddit very much so. And so it has become just this off ramp right into pop culture. And I think that savvy marketers have figured out that that's what that is, and it's a way to become relevant really fast, and it is a way to really kind of make yourself known without without being a barker. And some of the people have become really, really good at it. Like some of the videos that you do, it's the dumb thing at the beginning that you do that I think grabs people's attentions. It's like, it's like the Phrygian helmet, the bag over your head. I'm still not going to forgive you for that one, but just all these different kind of things popping out of here, popping out of there. That's what does it, and it just makes you that guy. And now people want to hear what you have to say.
I'm a pretty goofy guy.
Well, you hired me, so there's something goofy about it.
I was talking to I've talked to people about that. I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night or a couple nights ago. And because not everybody can get in front of the camera, and people get in front of the camera and they're just not watchable for whatever reason. And so I think that having a fun personality. I've always been creative, and so I enjoy all that. I think it's fun, and my kids will tell you how much of a weird mother I am. So so it's funny because my kids now, they follow me on Instagram. And so their friends follow me on Instagram because I'm connected with them. And so literally I've gone to to pick them up, and their friends are there and they're like, "Hey, Coin Man." So, and my kids actually call me Coin. They're like, "Okay, Coin, see you, Coin."
See you,
like,
Coin.
I'm Dad.
I'm still Dad.
So, but I see that as my kids, they're proud of me. That's their way of, of saying they're proud of me, and that, and, or going up and a friend will, like my daughter once said, "Oh, my friend wants to meet you. She's a fan." Like, man.
Hey, I'll tell you what, it is amazing how many people stop in, and in the shop, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I saw you on YouTube. I saw you on Facebook." And then you have to pry, because it's like, okay, where, it's like, which place did you, because I mean, we're publicity whores and we're pretty much everywhere, but yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a little unnerving the first few times, when people do that, because it's like you're used to being more anonymous, but that's something you signed up for when you do this. That's
right. It's funny, when I first started getting a lot of recognition for what I was doing online, I had somebody come up and ask me for my autograph at a coin show, and my dad was watching all this. And used to be everybody come up, and I mean, my dad's still a famous guy in the coin industry, and so, but people would always want to take pictures, and I don't know, somebody came up, they wanted a picture and an autograph, and then they walked away after we talked for a while, and my dad looked at me, he goes, "You're famous." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm internet famous, Dad."
Yeah. It's low level famous, not like you.
I'm like, "You're coin famous, buddy."
It's cool though, because I mean, you've become your own person without question. You are definitely your own entity on the internet, and there are now some people that know you and don't even know of your dad.
Well, my dad's 81 years old. They don't even know he's still around.
True.
In fact, what's really interesting, if you come to Harlan Burke and you go to look at ancient coins, my dad waits on almost every.
He will most likely take care of you. It's absolutely amazed me that when I started working here, it's like, I work downstairs in the shop on the main floor on the street, and Aaron and his dad and them work upstairs on the 13th floor of the building. And so, we'll send people, the high and mighty tower. We'll send people up to him, and it'll be like, "Yeah, Aaron, I'm going to send somebody up." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, just send them to my dad." It's like, it just, okay, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Harlan Burke.
You guys got to realize too, my dad, he's not he uses email, but he's not great with it. He uses internet, but he's not great at it. So for him, talking to people face to face is something he can do, and he
That's
likes
really
it.
his best.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes my dad's not busy because he's not doing stuff online like the rest of us are. And so if he has the time to wait on a client and sell them coins, he's probably better versed for that, you know. And so I find it, or I have him talk to Curtis, you know, because also Curtis is a great mind. And sometimes my dad gets mad because he's like, Curtis has to write up coins. And I'm like, well, you weren't available and I'm too busy, you know. And I don't mind waiting on clients if they ask for me, but if somebody comes in and they want to spend, you know, $100, it's not that I don't want to, but how cool is it to have my dad wait on them for $100? You know, it just makes us look that much cooler by doing that. The founder of the company is helping you on a $100 sale. Whereas me is I might have 10 people expecting me to email them back with notes on auctions or whatever. And my time might be better served doing something else, you know. So it's a balance, right?
Yes.
And so it's an advantage that we have, and it's an advantage that I still have my father. You know, I mean, I'm blessed that I have.
It's
both my
always
parents.
nice to have the masthead. It's, the name of the company is Harlan J. Burke. When you walk in and Harlan J. Burke takes care of you, that's, you know, that's a special privilege.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Back to the questions.
I had one more comment. You know, Evan, he has a winery which he supports our coin show
Very much so.
The Ancient Coin Podcast, and I watch his Instagrams, and he always shows like the behind the scenes of, you know, like around his vineyard, and that's really cool too, because you want to know where your wine or your eggs or wherever you're buying is coming from, and so that's really a beautiful way of showing social media and having it work for you. And that's why we just did the last video we did showing like the inside of Harlan Burke and the people that work there. And so I think it's really important, and those are the advantages. And honestly, I hardly spend any money on advertising anymore because of all of the social media that we do now. There's no need for us to spend money on advertisement.
No, as a matter of fact, the social media does a great job of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Evan's question, another one he had, was I'd be interested to learn more about fakes, particularly if fakes get pulled from a catalog. It would be good for everyone to learn more about identifying them. And, Evan, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we at Harlan Burke are famous for the Black Cabinet.
Right. So I can actually... It's funny you mentioned that, Evan, because I can bring up something that it's kind of been bothering me this week a little bit, but and I'm not going to get into too much about details about it. But what I will say is when we one advantages that we have at Harlan Burke is when we produce a catalog, we put it online first, because I've got all the images ready, and then I've got to lay out the whole catalog. Because we when you shoot, if you know anything about catalog production, cameras shoot in RGB, red, green, RGB, and blue, and printers print in 4-color, called CMYK, and so you have to convert your RGB files to CMYK. Right. And sometimes you have to be in tune with your printer to be able to get those colors correct. And silver is like one of the hardest things to convert to CMYK from RGB. But the web is all RGB, right? So I have all the images ready to go. And so then we have to convert them to CMYK, and then I have to lay the whole catalog out in InDesign, which is a layout program. And it literally, I'm fast at it because I've been doing it for so long. But I mean, guys, I was cutting out photos in the 90s and doing analog, which means cutting out pictures of coins and paste up. And so digital has changed the whole game.
Yes.
And so I can lay out an entire catalog in about 3 days, and I can do it if I'm pushed in 2 days. But that means me laying out about about 12 to 1400 images. And also putting in all the numbers, the lot numbers,
and making sure they match.
Yep. And then getting the text all situated. Then you have to be in ratios of 8s or 16s, because that's what printers print in. So if you're off by 6 pages, you might have to add pages or lose pages. There's all kinds of things you have to do. You can't just and I don't know what my layouts is until I get to the last coin, and then I'm done. And then I look to see what my page count is with my text in there. And then I have to decide where I'm going to be. And so back in the day, we'd have to add sometimes up to 8 pages, which means going in like to the dark room and getting a bunch of enlargements and then like putting them down. But now what I can do is I can make the text smaller or bigger, and that makes up my pages, because we don't mix. One of the reasons why we do text and images separately in our catalog is because it's cheaper. Because when you do text and images together, you add a lot more space, which adds more paper, which adds more weight. It's, and it's a longer process to lay out the catalog as well, because you're mixing text and plates together. When you have text separate from plates, it's a much more refined and more streamlined system.
Keeps like with like.
Cheaper. It's cheaper, and look, you know what it costs. We don't charge for our catalog. It costs us $25,000 a catalog, right? Just the printing alone costs us between 12 and 14,000. Then the shipping of those catalogs, because shipping is so expensive, you're looking at between 5 and 8,000, depending on if I go domestic and international. So, and that doesn't include then all of the wages that it costs it's probably over $25,000, and we don't charge for the catalog. And so, and once I get it to the printer and we go back and forth with corrections, then it takes them a week and a half to get it back to me. And so why would I wait 2.5 weeks to put it up online when it's ready to go as soon as the JPEGs are finished? And so the other advantage then is also we put it up online, send out a mass email. And because we do a buyer bid sale, now it's first come, first serve. And we might do up to $100,000 in sales in the first 24 to 48 hours. And so it also is a time for vetting, because if we made a mistake and somebody says, hey, that's a fake. And so to answer your question, somebody will come to us and be like, hey, you missed this. This is a known forgery. It's a known die forgery. And we just missed it. And so then it gives us the opportunity to pull it from the sale, which then makes it so that I don't have to put it in the print catalog. And so by the time that print catalog comes out, most of the catalog's been vetted by then, and we can pull those coins. So I just had a situation to go even further, because now we have like Coin Archives, AC Search, and other places where we search old auction records, right? And so the worst thing, and I mentioned this when I did the Black Cabinet, the worst thing an auction house can do is not pull a coin from an auction that they've been told is fake. They buy it in, so no one can buy it, but now there's an auction record for that coin. They return it to the owner, and that owner waits 2 or 3 years and then puts it up somewhere else for auction, and now it has an auction record.
Because now it has an auction record and it seems legit.
Right, exactly. And so, and the auction houses are doing less and less of that, but there used to be quite a few auction houses that would just buy them in because they didn't want to show they had a fake coin. Well, now people are pulling them, which is good. And I think they realized, because of the Coin Archive scenario and how dangerous that can be. And so, in fact, I know of a few coins that have gone through that process and been reoffered and then sold again, but people have said, hey, that's a fake, pull it, and gave the reasons, and then we're able to get it pulled out of the next auction it showed in. So I'm dealing right now is I represented a client on a coin in an auction house in Europe, and we ended up buying the coin. After I got the coin in hand, some things came up about it that didn't seem kosher, and so I showed the coin to one of the best, probably the best expert in the world on that coinage. He said it was fake. Then I ended up reaching out to a couple more dealers, and the thing is that it was on the cover of an auction catalog from 2013 for a company that's not around anymore, but they were a pretty legit company. And so I was kind of blinded because I was on the cover of their catalog and I didn't look hard enough. And it was on a bronze coin, which can be more difficult than silver, in my opinion. And so I then wrote the auction house, and the auction house said, well, we already paid our consignor, and the consignor doesn't believe that it's fake, so we're not going to give you your money back, even though they guarantee the coins. And the coin was $100,000, just under $100,000. And so I said to them, well, what if I send it to NGC? And they said, no, the collector doesn't believe in NGC. And I said, well, what if I send it to the IBSCC, which is run by the IPN, and they will write certificates whether something is real or not, and pretty well respected organization. No, they don't believe in that either. So basically they won't take the word of anyone. They just refuse to give the money back. And the auction house really does have, I mean, when you sell something, you are giving a guarantee. It doesn't matter if the owner doesn't want to give you the money back.
Right.
That's between you and them. When I buy from an auction house, you know, now look, I'm representing the client, so they're buying it, essentially buying it from me. And so I have to deal with the auction house, but I'm doing it on, you know, as a representation. Right. So obviously I don't want to give the money back me either, because I'm only making 5% or less. And so it's a token. Right. And so, I ended up sending the coin to Barry Murphy at NGC. He not only said it was fake, but he was nice enough to write me a report on why it was fake. So I had both of those items. Then I even went further and I found somebody who's very well respected, who was at the auction in 2013, went back to his auction catalog and said in the catalog he had wrote that it was fake in 2013. It had not sold in that auction in 2013. It sold to the book. So they may have bought it in. I'm not really sure. So anyway, I presented all that to the auction house. They said, no, the only people we'll listen to is a judge. So I had to get Swiss representation, and I'm suing them in Swiss court. And well, now you know it's in Switzerland, but in any case, I'm suing them in Swiss court. And then in the meantime, in doing some more research, I found that the coin was offered in 2021, and I didn't know it. And it was offered at the New York sale. And so Ira Goldberg, who's one of the owners of the New York sale, and it said unsold, and they had it estimated at 20,000, and the auction house in Europe had it for 50,000. So it was like huge discrepancy in price. Mm-hmm. And so I went to a couple of the owners, and then Goldberg finally got back to me, because I ended up after that, I found it on 6bid, and 6bid said that it was withdrawn. And so then I went back to Goldberg and I said, was this coin withdrawn? And they got back to me finally, and they said, yeah, it was withdrawn. And I said, okay. So then I reached out to Coin Archives and I said to them, hey, just so you know, that coin is showing that it was unsold, but it was actually withdrawn. So you may want to change that. And he was willing to change that, but he's not willing to change the fact that it sold to my client for almost $100,000. And I said to him, well, you should really say that it's fake, you know, or take down the listing, because if and when, and I will win this case, it's going to take a while, but I will win. It's going to end up going back to that owner, and that owner is going to wait a few years and then try to sell it privately. And they're going to show that they're going to, you know, give that auction record. And what was even more upsetting, and this is another thing you got to watch out for, is that the auction house in Switzerland obviously didn't use the New York sale auction record that it was withdrawn, because they wouldn't have been able to sell it, obviously. Right. And so now people can have misunderstandings on why a coin is withdrawn. There's not enough information, but generally if something's withdrawn, it's because they were told it was fake. And so now I understand the owner of Coin Archives' position. He said he considers Coin Archives to be a library. And so he doesn't have control over auction records. He doesn't want to be involved in, you know, and so I said to him, so really the only way for me to get it up there currently is for me to publish it in my buyer bid sale as a fake. And then it will show up in Coin Archives as a fake. So I'm basically then putting in another record.
So not to be like really blunt with it, but redirecting back to the original question. So is Coin Archives the place where you would go to learn about fake ancient coins?
No, it is not. Because unless they say withdrawn, which they generally don't, because a lot of times the auction houses, they don't want it to be.
So what's a good way for somebody to learn about fake ancient coins?
Well, most major dealers have black boxes or black drawers. And so like Evan or any of you guys ever come, I can show you our black drawers. We have 50 years worth of fakes. We probably have 3,000 fakes in drawers that we've taken off the market. And that's really what you should do as a coin dealer, is that when a coin is fake, you should hopefully be able to keep it. Generally, unless you own it, it's hard to keep it. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll offer the client money for it if it's a descendant of somebody, and there's no recourse, because when a coin is fake, it goes back through from person to person, right? And so like if I bought a fake from a dealer who bought it out of an auction house, who bought it out, like, and for instance, once I knew of there was a coin that we sold in Gemini that we were told was fake, but it had gone through 3 more auction houses in Europe, and I was told it was fake and the guy who told us it was fake, I found by doing my own research that they had sold it 5 years earlier in their auction. And so I knew eventually it would get back, but it was going to have to go from auction house to auction house to collector to auction house, all the way back through as people were getting their money back. It took them almost 2 or 3 years to hit our company by the time it had come back. And, and so that's the only unfortunate thing, is that when you buy a fake and people are guaranteeing it, it's got to be returned to the next person, and then it just keeps on going back, unless they bought it from somebody that isn't going to give them their money back, which generally isn't the case. It's very unusual for an auction house like this to do this, and it's very rare, in fact. And but to answer your question, go to a lot of I think the ANS, even the American Numismatic Society, probably has fakes as well. A lot of big dealers, C&G, I know, has black boxes as well. So you can go and study their coins. Most of them are pretty easy to tell, and there's some that are very, very difficult. And so I think just handling these things, when people say, well, how do I know it's fake? Well, it's just because I've handled so many. I mean, I know even with antiquities, I'm even better, because I've done antiquities longer than I've done ancient coins. And so I literally can walk into a room and somebody pull out an antiquity and I know it's fake before I even sit down.
Yeah, pictures are good, but there's just nothing like having something in hand as far as examining it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the weight for gold and silver will be pretty standardized. And so if something's way underweight or way overweight, that's usually a good sign. There are specific dye types that are known to be faked. There is a very
corrosion and casting are more apparent. I mean, it's just certain things that are just
But there's some websites out there. I forget the one I'm thinking of. Let me look it up. But they have all the fakes get posted there. I know there's a Facebook group now as well on ancient coins that's posting all the fakes there as well. And so you can go back and study those groups and find those fakes.
And there's a really wonderful Facebook group for US coins that are fake called The Dark Side. A lot of credit to Jack Young for him. He runs that group. This is Ask Us Anything. And since it's Ask Us Anything, I wanted to acknowledge one of the people that stopped in. Shanimal is here, Shannon Smith. He does a really good, he does a good version of this. They actually have people show up and do this every week. Live Coin Q&A is their website. Check out their video every week. You ask them questions. They ask you to post pictures, and they go through and they answer it for you. So Shanimal, welcome aboard. Thanks for showing up. And everybody should check out Live Coin Q&A. Sean Davis, who's somebody I've known for a long time.
Let me just add one little thing. So the Ancient Coin Forum for fakes is on the Forum Ancient Coins website. And if you go to forumancientcoins.com, they actually have a section which is called the Fake Report. And there's literally tens of thousands of fakes in there that you can go, old fakes and old records. And so you can go in there, search an ancient coin, and see if it pops up or not.
I can also highly recommend for ancients the forum Coin Talk. Coin Talk has an ancient forum, and the people there are really really knowledgeable, and will be able to answer your questions almost as well as anybody I know. Sean Davis, who has known me since, I mean, like the days I started on the internet, asks, Aaron, could you beat Mike in a game of bowling?
No,
Well, I'd say it depends on the circumstances.
absolutely not.
Depends on the circumstances. But other than that,
I mean, you'd have to close. I mean, you have to close your eyes.
right. It
and
depends
use
on
your
what
other hand.
handicap I'm given. But you know, it's nothing's impossible. Let's see. Some collectors have talked to some collectors I have talked to have raised the question, what's the benefit of using a reputable dealer like HJB for auction representation versus bidding and registering for an auction on your own? I'm going to put a clock on you on this one because it's a shameless plug. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so there's several reasons. First off, is we as especially myself, included, we know a lot of the backstories of at specific ancient coins or ancient coin auction houses, and so we can navigate a lot of the issues that might come up. Some of the highest value clients, now everybody is not a high value client. I wouldn't suggest necessarily using some like a dealer like me for low price things, wouldn't make sense. But for high value, I have clients that are very wealthy that don't want people to know that they're buying ancient coins, because if you buy from Heritage, they will be calling you to sell your ancient coin, sell any type of coin you have. They'll be like cold calling you. They'll be like, they pester people. And so, so when my clients buy very powerful, expensive coins, no one knows that they have them, not anyone, because I don't tell them who my clients are. And so it keeps them hidden, which is a safety. And also, I know a lot of high worth clients that when they are bidding an auction and the auction house knows that they're bidding, it's not true in every situation, but they end up sniping against them or bidding against them because they know that they have more money to spend. And so when I'm representing a client, they don't know who my client is. And so they don't know how high I'm willing to go. And generally speaking, I will give a recommendation on a level that makes sense, that is might be high based on what auction prices might be, but also is relative. And so I'm going to make sure that you're not going to make a really ridiculous mistake. Also, I might help you not buy a fake coin. And in the situation of the client that I represented, I'm now helping him try to get his money back through court. So I will go to the ends of the earth for my clients. I also know how to import coins in better than most people in the world. I had one client who tried to do it himself and ended up with an auction house that was a nightmare, and it took him a long time to get the coins. I have my own broker if I need to. I know how to navigate customs and what they need to see. And a lot of times, depending on how much I make, I may even comp the shipping from Europe. So I just spent nearly $1 million for clients in the Morton and Eden sale, and I paid for the armor car back to Chicago, which was about $900. So because I made enough money that I comp them that, and that's just part of the relationship. So there's a gazillion reasons. I've also had some of the biggest buyers in the world, even though you're not supposed to do this because it's necessary, it's somewhat fixing an auction. But I've had clients say, hey, what are you bidding on? And I might tell them one or two, and they'll say, well, I'm bidding on that too, but I don't need it, I already have it. So they'll lay off of it for me, because they'll say, is it for you or for a client? I'll say a client, and then they'll lay off of it. I don't go around telling everybody my bids, but a couple of people, depending on if I think they're going to beat me out on a coin, I might mention it. So there's a lot of different reasons, and that's just some of them.
Ding. Okay. So well done. Kept it within the allotted time. Let's see. T. Yeah, T wanted to comment on what we were saying about asking to keep the counterfeit coins. And he says, yeah, I'm rather paranoid, but I'd be very suspicious of a dealer that told me my coin was fake and also wanted to keep it or pay anything for it. I think a lot of that is in the way that the dealer explains themselves. I think that when you're talking to me particularly, I'm really gentle about it and explain to you exactly why I want to get the coin off the market and exactly what I'm trying to do with it. The fact that I'm going to use it for education, to show other people. So I have an actual purpose for it that would be lawful and would be a good use of it. So I try to appeal to the good nature of people in it. Although, you have to think about it because, when you start doing the guarantee thing and you start handing the coin back, eventually it's going to get to somebody who knew it was fake and sold it anyway. So that's just another round of that winding up for it, if you ask me.
Yeah, and also, like, if I'm buying a collection, I might buy the entire collection and then I can just pull the coins because I own them now, right? And so, especially if somebody who passed away and I'm dealing with the family, they don't want the coins back.
Oh.
So I'm going to buy the whole collection, and that's that. And I've literally had people come in and they'd say, hey, I want to sell this, and we'll say, well, it's a fake, and then we teach them why it's a fake, show them that there's no doubt that it's fake, and they'll say, well, do you want it? And we'll say, yeah, we'll give you the silver content for it or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll give money for that. So it's not like we're like trying to actively try to buy every single one of them, like aggressively. I don't need to have it back. It's just as easy for me to give it back to them and be done with it. But if the opportunity arises, then we do what we do.
Sure. We're gonna move on to a U.S. question. What coins do you feel undervalued at the moment? Walking Liberty has, Barber Quarters, your take on them and others. Undervalued is a dangerous thing. That's what's gonna go up. And if I knew that, I'd be a rich man. What I will tell you is that the top end of the coin market is still really vibrant and strong. So extremely good examples of things are still getting good money, whereas the mass of the coin market has been steadily declining for about 30 years. So, U.S. coins are just not something that you're normally going to see as far as being a good investment. Now, are there things that I think are underappreciated? Absolutely. I think that 3-cent nickels are a great place to go if you want to learn something about coins, if you want to collect something truly unique. They're available in all kinds of conditions, from good all the way up through proofs. And one of the things that I found in that particular series more than any other is that there are a lot of die clashes that they ended up not changing the dies. And so they wound up on the coins. And so you can find a lot of really, really cool stuff in there. Other than that, the U.S. hasn't been around long enough to have stuff that's truly underappreciated because there's just not that much of it. Back to ancients. Go ahead.
Hey, Happy Man. You going to do the Happy Man one?
The Happy Man one?
Yeah. Happy Man said,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Coins. Most of the coins we have today found in the ground, or do they come from somewhere else? Interesting to see how these 2,000-year-old coins are still around. Most of them come out of the ground. The question is when. And so I would say that, obviously there's a lot of old pedigreed coins, and there's that whole debate, which we can get into, of anything that's pre-1970, which is what museums and institutions need, that ownership, or the fact that it's proven to be left out of the source countries by that date. They can own those. So those carry much more value than, say, U.S. coins or world coins that have the same issues, because there's more legality issues around ancient coins, and so that does affect it. There's still coins being found all the time. I just bought this is kind of amazing. I bought 250 Pontius Pilate coins out of Israel. And the only way you can get coins out of Israel, very difficult right now because of the war, obviously. But the only way you can get an export paper these days out of Israel is if the coins have been in a collection in Israel for more than, I think, 10 or 20 years, something like that. And so there was literally a guy, I have a vendor I use that I've known for 30 years. My dad probably as long in Israel. And he knew of a guy who's in his mid to late 80s, and he's been collecting for 50 years, putting away prutas, which is the denomination of ancient coins. So he had 250 Pontius Pilates, and so I was able to buy them from this guy. we were able to get an export paper on Friday during this whole
Which
thing
means
going
we'll
on
be
in
able to
Israel.
sell them at Christmas time.
And they're already in FedEx, which is crazy that they were able to leave. And the only reason we were able to get an export paper is because the guy I deal with, he works with the Antiquity Authority in Israel, and he's very well respected. And so he's able to get export papers a lot faster than most.
And
so go ahead.
And no, I was not going to skip Happy Manatee's question, but I was going to wrap it with Taco John's because he says, what do you think about uncleaned ancient coins? I see sales selling them, and it's intriguing because I think that kind of wraps into the whole thing about, well, uncleaned ancient coins sound to me like a brick of metal that somebody pulled out of the ground that's just a cake of things that are stuck together.
No, you can probably figure that a lot of the unclean coins are from new hordes, new groups that are being found illegally. And so a lot of that stuff is being offered on eBay by sellers that are probably finding them themselves. The one thing I can say about ancient coins, and when you talk about the legality issues, is most ancient coins are not found on sites. They're generally found on trade routes, especially the gold and silver. Bronze coins probably were found on sites, generally speaking. And so I find that, but they don't hold a whole lot of value, but they have a lot of collectability aspirations that kids and other people who don't want to spend a lot of money on ancient coins can use. But I can guarantee you also that people who actually offer those big groups, they go through every single coin, and it's very difficult to find a rarity in there. It has happened. But generally speaking, the people who are offering those things are very smart, and they pull out a lot of the rarities already.
Let's see. How about this? Besides weight, do you have any tests in store? XRF, Sigma, specific gravity, ping, etc. So yes, the answer to that is yes. We use all kinds of different tests. What we don't use is we don't have an XRF machine because they're a little pricey. Specific gravity is something that I'm not opposed to. I actually like the idea of it, but it's a little tough to set up at times because you need to loop the coin on a string and have a graduated cylinder and all that. But ping is always used for silver if we're ever unsure. It's one of the first things we do is we ping it, see if it sounds right. One of the tests that I like to use for gold is I'll take a coin and I'll just put it in my hand and I'll hold it there for a second because real gold coins will warm up and they'll warm up pretty quick. And so that kind of gives me an idea about that. A lot of it though is just knowing what they look like and being familiar with them. I use the analogy all the time in the shop of have you ever taken a family picture and has somebody ever tried to sneak one of the neighbor kids in on you? Right? Because it's like you know what it's supposed to look like. If it looks really off, then that's kind of a red flag in and of itself. Do you use anything with your with ancients as far as testing them? Because there's basically only bronze, silver, and gold. That's
No, not really. Just using experience, making sure the dyes are correct, and making sure the weight is correct, looking at incrustations, and just using our overall experience
for method of manufacture.
They are starting to do a lot more metal tests at some of the university level and detecting. And I know that some people have tested specific coins from certain regions to know what that mint produced and what the silver content generally, if it's silver, was. And so if you get something that is more pure from that area, then the chances are it might be fake because they didn't do full 100% silver in a lot of those specific coinages. And so there are some tests that are being done and analyzing. And I've talked to a dealer who's very well respected in the industry, who's done a lot of work at the university level, using these high end microscopes to be able to test the metals and knowing the impurities in them and what should be there and what shouldn't be there. And I think as time goes by, I think that technology will get easier and easier, and we'll be able, and the knowledge base will become better and better, that we'll be able to test the metal without damaging the coin and knowing whether that's a kosher coin or not.
Yeah, because I mean, we still do things like scratch tests. I mean, it's just the way of the world. It's kind of the way it's done.
Yeah, the ANS was doing. They were actually taking ancient coins that were donated or from their own collections that were somewhat maybe damaged or something like that, and then they were actually having the coins drilled. I believe they were doing it in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, and they were taking metal samples and doing the research on the ancient coins. So there is a lot of study being done at the university level on a molecular what's the word? A molecular what's the word I'm looking for?
Structure? Molecular
Yeah,
structure.
the structure.
So
Yeah.
James M, was talking about how expensive XRF machines are. Yes, that may be true. And no, not every brick and mortar coin shop is going to have one. But when you're talking about the big guys, Stacks, places like us, I hate to say it that way, but Heritage, we're going to either have one or we're going to have access to one.
Right.
It's just part of the business. You have to do it. Jack Young, I've learned a lot about some early copper fakes through XRF testing. So, I mean, one of the great things about the U.S. coins being the early U.S. coins, the large sense, they're all pure copper. And so when they're not, that becomes a red flag in and of itself. Is there anyone who could recommend having a look at my overstock? I'll tell you what, T, if you send it to me and send it to Mike N at hjbltd.com, I will take a look at it for you and I'll see if I can help you figure it out. How do you check if antiquities are authentic?
It's very similar. So certain ceramics, because they did them at lower temperatures for the baking process, they'll have a different ring to them when you tap them. That's one indicator. The artists who did some of these works that were actually painted, we can tell based on the style and the way that they were painted. I know some academics at Princeton who I can send photographs of specific vases to that are painted, and they'll tell me, no, that's fake because that style is wrong. They know from the iconography. They're with bronze, just like on coins, you get layers of incrustation. I know what certain fake incrustations look like, and so that's another indicator as well. And then there is series of fakes that have been produced. There was a guy named Sadiq who was producing antiquities. He was actually making them himself in New York for 30 years. He just got arrested finally. And he was selling mail order. He was actually running ads in the back of National Geographic to target people who didn't collect antiquities or knew the antiquity trade and selling them fakes. And we used to get people their money back all the time. But there are literally versions of 30 years of his fakes that are on eBay. And so you see a specific one, that it's his. And so, and the reason he got arrested finally is not what was crazy is it was during all the stuff that happened with Richard Beale and the gold Eidmar that just got confiscated and sent back, and all of the state attorney in New York is against collecting, and so he's going after a lot of the antiquity trade in New York and scaring everybody out of town. And they basically came to him and was like, why do you keep bothering us? Why don't you go after the guy making fakes and creating and doing mail fraud for 30 years in the city? And so they finally raided his house, and he had gobs and gobs and gobs of fakes all over his house.
Go figure.
And I mean, the guy literally would come out of his gallery with paint on his hands from making fakes. And my dad knew him 40 years ago, and he was selling real things, and then he realized that he made more money on fakes than he was.
Well, the
dealing with real
margin's a little
things.
higher, I'll bet.
Much higher.
Yeah.
And what he would do is, because I'd literally have people come in and they'd say, "Is this real?" And I'm like, "Did you get this from Sadiq?" Or I'd say, "Where'd you get it?" They'd say Sadiq. And I'd say, "Well, what'd you pay for it?" And it would be an Egyptian sarcophagus fragment that had Anubis on it and really well done and this big. And they'd say, "Oh, I bought it for $500." I said, "Well, if this was real, I would charge at least $2,000 to $3,000 for it. So you tell me why a guy in New York is offering a piece that's worth $2,000 or $3,000 for $500." And then he would play the law of averages. He figured if he only got X amount of people to return something, then he'd give them their money back. Only if a dealer like myself or somebody else would say it was fake. Otherwise, most people would get embarrassed, or $300 or $400 here and there. They just didn't care. And so he was able to get away with that for a long time. But it's like anything else, it's experience. If I'm unsure about something, I know specific experts, and it's a vetting process. Like the whole thing about ancient coins at NGC is that not even NGC can be right on everything. And so that's why you need to have a consensus. And it's like the way it used to be. Back before there was NGC and ancients, people would go to a coin show, and because all the dealers that were of substance were there, and they would literally walk from table to table and say, "Can I show you this? Yeah. Do you think it's fake? Yeah. You think that's fake? Yeah. You think that's fake? Yeah. Well, let's see. Frank Kovacs, David Hendon, Eric McFadden, Victor England, they all said it was fake. Even when Barry Murphy was a private dealer, they all said it was fake. Well, it's fake. Then you go to the
If those guys say it's all, if all those guys say it's fake, it's fake.
Right. And so, but it was a vetting process. That's the way it was done, right?
Sure.
It wasn't just NGC and one or two guys saying it's fake, because guess what? They're not going to guarantee ancient coins, because they make mistakes too.
Right.
Right. And that's why you need to have outside people to get, so somebody says to me, "Hey, NGC says this is bad." I say, "Send it back to me and we'll do our own research." And I might show it to a bunch of other dealers and get their opinion. And then if it's fake, and then give them their money back.
Sure.
Chances are we're going to give them their money back anyway, because when NGC says, because they're not going to want it anymore,
right,
regardless. So, and I'd rather have a client be happy with everything they buy from me, regardless if I think their NGC's right or wrong.
Correct.
So, but it's, back on antiquities, it's really a vetting process. And I know everybody in the world in different areas. And so I can go to this person. I can, if it's cuneiform, I know somebody who can read cuneiform. If the cuneiform doesn't make sense, I know it's fake. If I know somebody who reads hieroglyphics, if the hieroglyphics on an Egyptian piece is wrong, I know it's fake. There's lots of variables that you can go through, and people that you can go to vet the stuff and make sure that before you offer it, that you know that what you're offering is real.
There's almost always somebody who knows.
If you're in the business long enough, you learn everybody.
Yeah.
So
let's see. Question for both Aaron and Mike. What is your personal favorite coin? Go ahead, Aaron.
My personal favorite coin, I would have to say it's a tie. Well, a coin that we get all the time is the Syracuse decagram. I love that series. I love that coin. Every time I have a Syracuse decagram in my hand, it's such a joy to hold. It's really it probably is my favorite coin. And the next favorite would be an Eidmar, which I've luckily been able to handle quite a few. And so, I'd say, for Roman, I'd say the Eidmar, and for Greek, I'd say the Syracuse decagram.
No, it's really funny because I have always been a U.S. coin guy. I've always been a U.S. coin expert. I mean, kind of look right down there. It says U.S. coin expert. And yet, I would have to say that my two all-time favorite coins are both ancients. So you're having an influence.
Having an influence.
Yeah, you're having an influence. I'm not sure if that's a good influence or not. So I also think that the Eidmar, and it's the Eidmar Aureus, and it's because of the story, and I'm such a story guy, right? And the fact that there are only 3 of them left, and 2 of them legally, and the hole in it, potentially having been snatched off somebody's neck by Augustus. I mean, just all that stuff is just really cool in my world. And the other one that I really, really want to own, see, I don't want to own an Eidmar because I know that's just not in my cards, would be an Athenian tetradrachm. I just like the owls.
So Evan asked what my favorite antiquity was. So my favorite, it's probably one of my favorite stories, honestly. So, and I've had quite a few great stories, but I had a guy come in once with a collection of Sumerian objects, and he represented a gentleman who had passed away. He had lived with his brother. They'd never married. They had no kids. They had no descendants. He literally had to go to like a third cousin of this guy and tell this person that they had an estate worth $2 million. And they didn't even know who they were. But anyway, their father had collected Sumerian objects in the 1930s, and he had all the original letters from the Oriental Institute, which is the local museum here, from the curator, going back and forth between the collector and the director of the Oriental Institute on Sumerian objects. And if you know anything about Sumerian's kind of a hard thing to sell these days because all of it comes out of Iraq, and because of the Iraqi wars, everybody stays
because it's likely
clear
looted.
of Sumerian because it's all looted, right? Unless you like, even before the wars, I was getting Sumerian tablets and Sumerian stuff all the time. It was just there's gobs and gobs of it all around. And so the advantage these days, if you can get something that's pre Iraqi war with the US, then you're in good shape, And so anyway, these were stuff from the 30s. Well, I ended up buying the collection, and in the collection was a bronze plaque that was dedicated to a queen from the Sumerian period. And after I got it, we started researching more, and it turns out it had been published. And I had a letter from the director of the OI in the 1930s of them cleaning it. And this is how things have changed. There's even a letter in there stating from the director of the Oriental Institute on one of the clay tablets that the collector had, asking if they could ask the Iraqi dealer who dug it up where they found it. And so everybody shared everything back then. The diggers, they weren't called smugglers then, they were local people finding things, would talk to the museum people and to the collectors. Everybody collaborated. Everybody knew where everything was found. The biggest issue that we have these days is that nobody knows where anything is found because there's always going to be a black market. You're never going to end it. Even if you got every American to stop buying antiquities and ancient coins, there's still Arabs that are buying it. There are Chinese that are buying it. There's
people all over the world. It is the oldest stuff. It is the oldest stuff in humanity that humanity has made.
Right. And you know why King Tut is famous? Because we found his tomb intact. That's the only reason. It was a closet. All the stuff of Ramses and everything of every pharaoh was all stolen out of the tombs in ancient times. And so the only reason King Tut is famous is because we found his tomb intact. And I've been there. It's a closet. It's the smallest thing there. And so looting has been happening since the ancient times. You're not going to stop it. So they're better off legalizing it. And I've talked about this on our show, and having everybody share information and keeping stuff in the ground. And yes, there'll be people who will break the rules, but you'll have enough people that are legitimately doing the right things that you'll have a lot of this information not lost. In any case, going back to that whole situation, I ended up getting the piece into a Christie's sale because it had this pre-1930s, and they made it the cover piece, the cover to the whole tablet was the cover of the catalog, and that was their middle finger to the archaeologists to say it's completely legal, you can't do anything about it. And ended up selling for $100,000.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty exciting.
And Jay Burns asked the same question, Mike, the coolest coin, because you asked my favorite. It actually is a different question to ask the coolest. At one time, when Matt and I were hosting the show at the World's Fair of Money, I had Q David Bowers sitting in front of me, and I had the very first coin that was minted by the United States in my hand. That is by far the coolest thing I've ever seen, ever had, ever felt. It was the first. It belonged to David Rittenhouse, who was the director of the Mint, and it was quite awesome.
The latest
Justin
version
Irvin.
of the 100 Greatest.
Aaron is on. Thanks, Justin.
The latest version of the 100 Greatest coin book is coming out in November. Third edition.
And it has a new lineup. Some of your favorites have returned. Some additions have been made.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Let's see.
Thanks, Evan.
Yes. Thank you very much, Evan. And really, I mean, if nobody's got anything else, we really, really appreciate everybody showing up. We had a nice turnout for something. Excuse me, now I got the hiccups. We had a nice turnout for something that was so impromptu put together. We are definitely going to plan the next one out a little bit better, but we wanted to do something for Matt while he's been out, and we wanted to do something, just kind of a little cross promote. So you can find the Ancient Coin Show or the Ancient Coin Podcast on our website at hjbltd.com. You can check us out, give us a listen. We generally post every second or third Wednesday. And
we're going to be doing one Wednesday.
Yeah, we will have a new one coming out this Wednesday. And this one is going to be our Halloween episode.
It'll be our Halloween episode, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun.
My mic is going to be working, so you won't be hearing.
Well, your mic is now fixed.
Yes,
When is Mike getting a raise? He will take piles of hay. Hey,
my mic was always fixed. It was Mike's computer that was not fixed.
All right, let's stop throwing Mike under the bus, okay? Jeez,
I
owned it. I know you do.
Buddy.
I know you do. That's why I let you bust on me. So otherwise, if you've got nothing else, if we haven't broken everything here yet, then
no, we're good.
Yeah,
we're good.
Okay. So
this was fun, guys.
This was fun, and thank you, Aaron, for coming by and for doing this for me. And Thank you to everybody who listened. Thank you to our staff, Justin Irvin, who is our producer here in the chat. We also have the unnamed source. We also have Ernesto Aguilar and let's see, the Fuzz. We have him hanging out, and of course the brains of the operation, Leanna Spurrier. So thank you to everybody who helps contribute and make this show what it is. Thank you to all of those who showed up. Thank you to those who listened. We appreciate you. And Matt will be back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to do some interesting stuff then. For the Coin Show, I'm Mike. For Aaron Burke, we'll see you next time. Maybe on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
With Aaron Burke.
You're listening to the Coin Show Podcast with...
Oh, that's not what I wanted. You know what? We'll just do it this way.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke.